the secret files of Teletraan 2.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Files of Teletraan 2, or from the Files of Teletraan 2. I'll never get it right. I've actually made it a business now not to get it right. We're talking comics. With me today is Andy.
Me.
Andy.
Hello.
Hello. We mentioned this on the main show, but I think we'd better make a brief mention of it here. Due to personal circumstances of I can't fucking take it anymore, we are taking a break from the main Transformers books, and we are sort of mixing things up for the main show. For the next couple of months at least, we are basically going to be approaching this as picking comic books, not really Transformers related, that we like, that we want to talk about for the main show. Outlier Transformers books like 84, Terminator, and whatever will still be in the Patreon section, so we will still be talking about them there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, just for mental health reasons, basically.
I wouldn't say mental health.
For me, it was. I was losing.
I tolerate it.
I was spending. I'd spent hundreds on a book I never wanted.
Yeah, I don't know why you did that.
Because I was an idiot. But hey, turns out I would put it down in mental health, because it's just like, why am I abusing myself like this? So for this first one, this inaugural one, we are doing the issues 2 to 7 of Immortal Hulk.
Why 2 to 7, Mikey?
Because ending on 2 to 6 would have been very strange.
And why not 1?
Because we already did it.
That's right. We're not doing it again. That's on Patreon somewhere.
So we did a Patreon review of Immortal Hulk issue 1. We decided we'll do we were going to do just 2 to 6 for this, but then rereading it, I realized 6 ends in a bad place for ending a review if you're going to do a whole volume.
Yeah, I would agree.
Whereas 7 has a quite good, and this is where it cut off kind of moment.
Is that actually where the trade ends, or does the trade end on 6?
I've only got the individuals.
Oh, okay, right.
So anyway, I'm assuming people don't. There might be someone listening to this who doesn't know what Immortal Hulk is.
Yeah, brief overview, I suppose. Yeah.
So, 2018, following on from the Civil War II storyline, Bruce Banner had been killed by Hawkeye, part of an elaborate plan. And then it was revealed that the Hulk and other gamma mutates are essentially at least partially immortal. They always come back. Now, granted, every comic book character always comes back, but this time they wanted to explain it. And Bruce comes back, the Hulk comes back, and the Hulk that comes back is not the one you expect. It is a new, or possibly not so new personality, with a very different, more aggressive outlook. And his story is being told in Immortal Hulk by Al Ewing. Unlike every other Hulk book in recent years, it is a full-on horror book. It is very much intended to be in the original style of the idea, which was emphasizing the monstrous nature of the Hulk, not the Hulk as a superhero. So, yeah, and the first issue basically introduces the new Hulk, very articulated and very violent, and just doesn't show him dealing with a supervillain, shows him dealing with a guy who shot Bruce and a young girl. At night, the Hulk comes back to life. The girl doesn't, and Hulk seemed to have taken that quite personally. And executed as such. But yeah, so will we get straight into it?
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, given this is 6 issues, I'm not going to do the detailed breakdowns we normally do. I'm just going to give a brief overview of the arc of the story, and then we'll get into it, because there's quite a lot to dig into in this one. So issue 2 starts off with Bruce basically living the life he lived in the 70s, on the run, living hand to mouth, stealing sometimes to live, sleeping on the streets, not doing so well, and sort of narrating his life and where he is. And we realize that while Bruce has come back from death, he seems to have suffered some sort of brain damage, because he isn't as intelligent as he used to be. He's not dumb by any means, but he's not as bright as he was.
I meant to ask you about that, because it did mention at some point in this story about the whole Hawkeye with the arrow to the brain, and there was a reason for it, but it never really goes into that. And that seems like a really weird thing to... I mean, I understand why they didn't fully go into it, but is it more significant that we'll find out later on, or is it worth mentioning what that was all about now?
So when Civil War Civil War 2, because hey, movies, was conceived, the idea was that Bruce was afraid the Hulk would get involved and lose control. Okay. So he asked Clint to kill him with a special arrow that would bypass... Yeah, kill him, so that if he's ever too dangerous.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Clint gets let off, despite the fact that, like, She-Hulk super tries to kill him. She's very pissed at the time, and from there her powers have changed a lot, and she's a lot more like the regular Hulk. Not
we'll get to
that. I believe the new book, she's getting a new book coming up, that might be, because Immortal She-Hulk, that might be pulling that back a bit. Okay. I'm hoping it does, because I really like She-Hulk, but I think it's important that she functions as she was. But, yeah, and then Al Ewing came along and said he's going to retcon it, so basically Bruce was running one big experiment. He wanted to see what would happen. Because he thought he would come back. And he did. So, anyway, the dangerous part of this is that the Hulk is now the more intelligent one of the two. And he manipulates Bruce from within his own body. They go to a restaurant and find out that there's been a recent spate of deaths. The Hulk leads Bruce to a cave where he finds Dr. Fryer, a gamma-irradiated man who is murdering people who find him in his hidey hole. He tries to kill Bruce, he does. Unfortunately, that wakes up the Hulk, who gets Fryer to admit that his wife died. He developed this extreme fear of death. He developed what he thought was some sort of like super serum to extend your life and make you super young, and surreptitiously gave it to his son, who had a football scholarship and, was in risk of, anything could happen. And unfortunately, it resulted in his son seemingly dying almost immediately while crying out that he can see a green door. Hulk basically views this as an abusive father and decides the guy needs to be punished because of not only the people he's killed himself, but his son's grave is leaking radiation, which means other people are going to die from this. And the guy is so afraid of death, Hulk buries him in a cave, rips off his arms and legs, and leaves him there. As he just sits there saying death would have been better. And that issue ends with the son being uncovered and having mutated into something similar to his father and found by seemingly rescue services. The next issue 3, is an interesting one because it's a side character, McGee. She's a reporter who's following the path of the Hulk. And she's interviewing people in an incident where a gamma mutate called Hotshot burst into a church trying to get help for his girlfriend, I think it was.
Yeah.
And basically threatened to murder people unless they basically exorcise him. And we get 3 different perspectives. We get the perspective of a policeman who sees Hulk as a hero and like calls him old Jade Jaws, and sort of in his version of it, Hulk talks like kind of an 80s superhero. You have an older lady who basically sees it all very romanticized and sees Hotshot as a James Dean type character, and oh my, isn't it horrific? And you get the priest who probably sees the closest to the truth, but still damaged, in which he sees this troubled, dangerous young man who went up against a force of nature and lost. In the end, the girlfriend is found to have killed herself after scrawling green door on a wall. And Hotshot is put in prison, but he's found hung. Issue 4 leads into the introduction of Sasquatch, who is Walter Lankowski.
He's from the amazing Canadian team Alpha Flight, which I remember from the terrible 90s X-Men episode.
Oh, God, yeah.
With Vindicator.
I remember Sasquatch because he's actually in an episode of the Hulk. Of the Incredible Hulk.
No, yeah. That's Wendigo, isn't it?
No, the Wendigo, like, Sasquatch has one. He's voiced by... Oh, God, what's his name? The guy, fantastic voice, Lex Luthor.
Really? I don't
Yeah,
remember that. I definitely remember Wendigo's in it, but I don't remember Sasquatch. That's interesting.
Yeah, because like he's trying to copy the Hulk, and he ends up mutating and accidentally hurts the child. And I just remember the scene where he's holding on to like a bit of ice. Hulk broke off, and he's like, "I hurt a child," and he just says, "I need to. The monster must be locked away," and he just floats off into the sea. And Hulk,
that's right. He pushes a little ice block away, doesn't he? And he floats away.
And the child is super annoying and has a small dog. But yeah, so he was Bruce's old roommate. McGee gets talking to him and says, like, "Tell me what you know about Banner." We find out that Sasquatch has basically retreated into the Sasquatch form in recent times. He's even getting interventions from Captain Marvel. And while they're at a bar, they get involved in a seeming brawl. Walter is stabbed and seemingly dies. He is taken into the hospital, and as he's being treated, Bruce shows up and tells McGee that the Hulk brought him here, and she needs to leave and get everyone out, because nothing good is coming of this. And the dead Walter mutates into Sasquatch, and murders the doctors treating him. Moving into issue 5, where we get the confrontation between Hulk and Sasquatch, who very much is claiming not to be Sasquatch. And once again, we get talk about the Green Door, and it's revealed that he seems to be Bruce's father possessing the Sasquatch body.
Do we know what Bruce's dad is called? Or do you know?
Brian Banner.
Brian Banner.
BB. Roger.
That's very different, because I'm a Fate fan, and there's a character called BB in that game, so very different.
But yeah, they have a fight. It turns out Hulk can now absorb gamma radiation, which is not really something he could do before. He could absorb magic, but like just grabbing someone and draining them, that was more Red Hulk.
Absorb magic?
Yeah. Which
that.
Makes sense later on in the book.
The magic absorption of the gamma absorption.
Well, the gamma absorption is that's basically our Red Hulk power they give to Immortal.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, the magic absorption is a thing that makes a bit more sense when you understand what's going on with the gamma mutates.
Right, okay.
Anyway, he ends up drawing the gamma out of Walter, who loses his powers, but seems to have absorbed Brian into the Hulk. And something else was there. Brian basically seemed to have been sent by something. Right? We follow up from that with the Avengers arc for issue 6 and 7, whereby US Hulk operations, which are basically the government's Hulk branch, run by evil General Man, Reginald Fortean, his name's Fortean, and Dr. Clive. That's all we know his name is, Dr. Clive. They blackmail Captain Marvel into capturing the Hulk, or attempting to capture the Hulk, because either you capture him or we hold Walter responsible for the people the Sasquatch killed. We also see that Hulk operations are basically spying on everyone from Betty to Jen. Carol basically realizes that Alpha Flight doesn't stand a fucking chance, because they have Walter and Puck, and whatever Sasquatch said, he was never Hulk's equal. And she basically gets the current team of Avengers together, and they make a move on him. And I believe he was on Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, Ghost Rider's in there for some reason. Black Panther, She-Hulk, and Captain Marvel are the Avenger teams. Yeah. So they basically say, we want you, we're not going to kill you, because then you'll turn into the Hulk, and that's bad. And then they're like, that's my secret, Captain. I'm always dead.
Yeah, that was a bit... I didn't like that line. I saw what they were trying to do, but it was real kind of cringy, like, wow, you're forcing this a bit hard.
I never like when anything references the MCU. I'll be completely honest. And then
must not like Marvel at the moment, in general.
There's a reason this is one of the only books I'm reading. Also Spider-Man. And we get an all-out brawl between the Hulk and the Avengers, and it turns out the Avengers are outnumbered.
Outnumbered? You mean outmatched?
No. I always like the thing of like everyone versus X, everyone was outnumbered. It's one of my favorite quotes. Like, doesn't matter who you're up against, you're outnumbered. But yeah, the Hulk basically levels everyone up to and including Thor. In fact, Thor is the first one to drop. He either beats people, gets into their heads, or nearly kills them. Eventually, after evacuating a local town, Tony, against everyone's wishes, activates a gigantic sunbeam, basically. Which, of course, Immortal Hulk is a man of the night, so you basically hit him with a giant UV beam. They turned him back into Banner, and then murdered Banner with a nuke, for want of a better term. They then turn on a bunch of really high intensity UV lights and point them at the corpse, going like, if one of these breaks, we're all dead. The Avengers are not in agreement. Marvel and America, the captains, are pretty unhappy with what happened. T'Challa, on the other hand, is just like, yeah, well, it was him or us, and he's going to come back. But Steve is not happy, especially. And the book ends with, unfortunately, them having to hand the Hulk over to U.S. operations, who have somehow sliced him into about 20 different pieces and are keeping them all in a jar. Or several jars. A wall of jars, if you will. And yeah, and that's this volume, this run. It leads into the next story. Andy, you're coming into this pretty fresh. What's your thoughts?
Pretty fresh. Yeah, really good. Really interesting. I want to know why Chris McFeely was so happy at the end of this book to have the Hulk in so many jars.
I didn't realize he was.
Look at that character on that board.
Oh,
Tell
yeah.
him that doesn't look like Chris McFeely.
I thought, like, is he tweeting about it all of a sudden? That would be...
that I know of.
Cut up Hulk in my house.
It's just the way.
Hashtag Avengers.
No, I really like this book. The wasn't a big issue, but a little nitpick I had was I felt that on maybe one issue, the first issue with Sasquatch coming in, where he gets stabbed. That issue, which was like, what was it, like 4? I think they used too many double page spreads for scenes that didn't really need to be double paged, if you know what I mean. There was a scene of them like looking at destroyed cars and stuff, and it was a double page spread, and it just felt like this. Like I say, it's very nitpicky, but you don't want to overuse double page spreads. And I thought that was one time where it just didn't need to be done, and it was just kind of a wasted double page for no particular reason. They do better in the future, like in issue 7, they have a good bit where the family's running and a giant car smashes in front of them. Maybe you could have reduced that one, maybe got that out of the way, but you have the shot from space where the big energy UV blast. That's appropriate. That one's worthwhile because it's a long, far away shot to show you how big the explosion is. That's a good idea for that. The smaller kind of scale ones, maybe a bit overused. But I think that's a comic book issue sometimes generally, isn't it? The overuse of the double page spread. Yes,
it's something people rely on too much, I think.
Yeah. But overall, I really enjoyed it. The art is fairly consistent. It does change in issue 7, but it still looks right. Like no one, like they're all kept on model, even if the art style isn't exactly the same.
And that's something I'm really picky about at the moment, because we had an issue of The Flash come out this week, which was the final end of Joshua Williamson run, and I have so many good things to say about it apart from the art.
Oh, bummer.
Which
What's wrong with the art?
The basic art style is fine, especially when they're masked, but there's some real bad proportions on faces. Okay. And like they drew a character and I was looking at it for ages trying to figure out who it was. Because it was this, like, middle-aged to elderly Asian lady.
Okay.
And I was staring at it, and then it just hit me like, oh my god, that's supposed to be Linda.
Oh. Who's
early 30s Korean, South Korean.
Oh no.
Should not look like she's someone's grandmother.
No, preferably not.
But, yeah, it's the art style, I think, is such a key point about this book.
Yes, yeah. It helps intensify the horror aspect of it.
Like you're a horror fan. Like, what do you think of the actual like horror elements of this book?
Well, so far, like, because I'm like kind of desensitized to a lot of the horror because I'm broken on the inside. A lot of this, I'm just like, oh no, it's fine. I don't find it too horrific in a lot of sense because I see more like Hulk is just an avenging angel, kind of like what Spectre. He's kind of the Spectre in a sense, in the basic sense of you're a bad guy. I'm gonna really hurt you now, and it's gonna be justified. And you go. Yeah, I guess you may be a little bit extreme, but whatever. But I don't think the horrors really set in until the end of issue 7, which is Hulk in the Jar, and then you go, oh, okay, that's a bit more of the horror element. But you do feel the tone of horror, like the atmosphere while you're reading is quite heavy in places. And characters like Sasquatch and Hulk are drawn to be very monstrous, more so than they ever had been. And I think like the issue 3, where you had the 3 perspectives and the 3 different art styles, really, or 4 different art styles, I suppose, really emphasized that, since you had like 60s, 70s colored or styled Hulk, and then you had the I don't want to call it anime shoujo, but you know what I mean. The old lady who basically even then is like Hulk's very pretty, just very veiny. And then the last style, which was I thought the priest style was very similar to, at least how I offhandedly remember the Marvel Zombies look to be. And I think that's what they were going through for, like maybe comic book art styles through the years. Not only to fit with the personalities telling the story, but also to kind of go down that aspect of it as well. And Sasquatch, who I always looked a bit dumb, looked kind of nightmarish in the hospital scenes with his big old fanged mouth and fluffy hands and whatnot. So there is a horror element to it, but nothing that is making me go, "Ooh, that's rough." But then again, like I say, it's really hard to kind of get me on that kind of level a lot of the time.
I will say it dials up from here.
Oh, that's okay.
Quite a visually, certainly, like it goes for the grotesque a lot more. This book actually is probably the tamest of the whole run.
I could believe that. From what I remember you telling me about this book, it's probably done deliberately, so it kind of eases you into the feel of it, like the beginning of a horror film, which is usually very light, and then it kind of builds and builds.
I think one of the intents of this at the moment is just to show the disconnect of this Hulk versus other ones.
Oh, right. I thought you were just going to say like the disconnect between this and just Marvel books in general, where you can do something that's not connected to the movies and it still be appropriate. Like I was talking to Mr. Gruff earlier today about this and saying it's nice to see them apply a genre that wouldn't usually be associated with heroes in the correct way. Like the only other time that I remember, like the only other kind of thing that I've seen off recently, unfortunately, that was horror and Marvel related was New Mutants. And I didn't go and see it, but I watched reviews on it, and it's like that's the bad way to kind of mix the two genres together. As that's meant to be a very, very bad film, which I'm not shocked by.
Yes, well. Yes. But no. Yeah, it's tonally it's an interesting animal. It's just you'd never sit down and tell someone to read a Hulk book and say like the big seller for this is how psychological it is.
I would always find it hard to be convinced to read a Hulk book because I know you've always been a big fan of Hulk, but I remember like asking you about what's a good Hulk book to read, and I think before this, like I was like, is the Red Hulk stuff any good? And you're like, ugh. Like I think it was quite hard to pin you down on like what a good Hulk book read was.
Like so like you're looking at stuff like Planet Hulk is kind of the big one, but like the Peter David era is pretty good. It does some stuff I'm not super crazy about, but it's pretty good. Some of the 90s stuff is good. Indestructible Hulk has moments, but the problem with the Hulk is that he's frequently given to people, I find, who don't who kind of fall into they fall into the trap that people fall into with Superman, is that they get obsessed about his powers. Right. Yeah, definitely. And they don't like the interesting stuff about the Hulk is the Hulk, not necessarily the fact he can punch out God. The really good stories really played with the idea of these different minds, these different personalities. like the 90s one had some interesting stuff because Bruce is essentially subsumed into some new version of the Hulk.
Okay.
And it plays out like that. And that they also like when they introduced the idea of Joe Fixit, the Grey Hulk. That was really interesting as well. The Peter David era brought in several different versions of the Hulk and dealt with things like Bruce and the Hulk kind of merging for a while. And Planet Hulk brought in Green Scar, and these were ones that brought in new elements to the character. And a lot of books I find just sort of here is a scientist and a big scary monster, and that's the least interesting aspects of this of this hero for me. I've always been drawn to Hulk because there's just this fundamental tragedy to the character. Like I always said, the interesting thing to me is that the Hulk never gets to be happy. Like
no, that's Peter Parker.
No, Peter Parker keeps trying, but then like the Marvel equivalent of Dan Didio rises out of the floor. No,
married.
No.
Let's get rid of your happiness, Peter.
Right. You want to get engaged again? You'll say no. Into the hole you go. Mary Jane's on fire. Why? Marvel. But so it was always something that fascinated me, like the idea that this thing gets to exist, but only gets to exist in a perpetual state of anger because when it calms down, it goes away.
Yeah.
And I always like the early Hulk stories were more about the very early Hulk stories. The ones that this one is inspired by are about the Hulk.
When was it exactly that they decided that Banner was going to be a piece of shit? Because they luckily did touch on that in this book as well, with Sasquatch Human Man saying, "Oh yeah, Bruce is kind of a douche in university," and I thought, "Oh, good. At least they're not kind of wiping that slate clean." Because I think it adds to the Hulk being a piece of shit most of the time as well. Because it's like, well, if Banner's a cock, then it would make sense that the Hulk would be a little bit of a cock as well.
But I always find it interesting. You'll tend to find the Hulk will do the right thing before Bruce does.
Yeah, because I remember that was something you talked about that on a past episode years ago. I think at this point when you were talking about a Hulk comic where you went the real monster's Banner in a lot of ways, and I thought that's an interesting idea.
When the book started, it was kind of a traditional superhero book, but even then, like the actual catch line for the Hulk was, "Is he a man or a monster or both?"
Ah, right, okay.
And from the very beginning, there was the idea that the Hulk is letting out the parts of Banner that he doesn't want to admit he has. And as the book went on, he became a bit harder. He was still a superhero. I started noticing it in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Right.
As he kind of, after the Professor Hulk stage, because Professor Hulk is like the most superheroist Hulk. But I would say like the real like Banner's a bit of a douche has been in since post World War Hulk, I'd say.
Okay.
Because it was definitely there in the Red Hulk days, and the Incredible Hulks and everything else like that all played into the same idea.
Yeah.
Like he was very manipulative of his son at one point, of Scar.
Scar, yeah.
But yeah, so I really do appreciate that. Like in this book where no one's really a hero, Banner, we're not pretending that Banner is this nice, clean person.
Yeah, but it's only alluded to at the moment. They haven't really gone the whole hog.
No.
They've just kind of gone, oh, he was a bit of a dick in college. Mainly because they haven't had time because they've been doing other stuff as well, which, perfectly fine.
Yeah.
They'll get to it, I'm sure.
He gets more focus as the book goes on, especially when Betty comes in.
Oh, good old Betty. As long as there's never a point like there is in Ultimates Volume 1. Is there a point where Hulk basically says he wants to rape Betty and then eat her?
But there's a moment that sort of like is like, what about the Ultimates Volume 1 but something kind of reversed?
I would at least imagine it'll be better than Ultimates, because I remember back
everything's
in day,
better than Ultimates ending. That's
back in day, I liked Ultimates 1 and 2 when I first read them, but they were fairly new. I was like, oh wow, this is really cool. But then obviously as I've gotten older and my taste has become more refined, I've realized it is the McDonald's of meals. You can eat it, but you won't be satisfied afterwards.
And especially if you're French, where Captain America hates the French for some reason.
Oh yeah, oh god, I forgot about that. That was weird.
I think the A in my head stands for France. I always liked when someone said, like, it's really a more realistic portrayal of what he would have been like, and it was like,
fuck, I hope not.
He's a guy who lived in an ice cube for 60 years. Do we really want him realistic?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but Sasquatch is an interesting one in this, because I've only ever read him in teen books.
Yeah. I doubt he has many standalone titles.
So just in this brief run, I really like the personality they give him. Of kind of, he was always like he gives this feeling of being inadequate about himself, like,
which is interesting.
And
Sasquatch he seems like he's really smart and he's pretty good looking and he's very athletic. It's like what most kind of guys would try and aspire to be for the most part, because it sounds like the way he was able to make himself into Sasquatch was he's pretty rich, right? Yeah. So he's literally got everything a guy could want for the most part, and then he still feels inadequate, which is fascinating, which is really sad and kind of telling in a lot of ways, because I'm sure a lot of guys feel like that regardless.
It's also like he's comparing himself to Bruce constantly.
Yeah.
Like, but it's like, oh, I'm intelligent, but I'm not as intelligent as Bruce. And like his whole, like, he duplicated what made the Hulk down, like he properly duplicated it, which is nuts. And he couldn't make the Hulk.
No, yeah.
He made Sasquatch, who is basically an inferior version, just like all the other attempts.
But that I guess that goes into the whole dad stuff, which will be kind of explained later, right?
Yeah.
Since he was already pre-experimented upon and then hulked.
Yep. But it's always interesting for me, like I love the line where he points out he's twice as strong as Bruce, like which the implication, like, he was expecting to be twice as strong as the Hulk.
Yeah, well, I suppose from a scientific point of view, that could make sense. Like, if it's just enhancing your physical capabilities.
It's one of the ideas behind Venom, despite the fact it makes no sense when you actually think about it with Venom.
Oh, the Venom suit, you mean?
Yeah, Eddie works out, so he's stronger than... He's super strong, whereas Peter can lift a truck.
I still remember the... do you remember the 90s cartoon when he gets the suit and he's just working out and he's just getting bigger and bigger? It's like, hell. One pump and he grows like 5 centimeters in bicep width. It's like, holy crap.
What else do I like about this? I really like the Dr. Fry story. I thought that was interesting and tragic.
It's a nice standalone, yeah. And the Doctor does it for, I'd say, legit good reasons.
Like
it just goes wrong very quickly, and then he kind of just doesn't do the right thing, unfortunately. Yeah.
But he's faced by the one person in this book who, like, there are no second chances. There's no subtlety.
Yeah, no.
You did wrong?
Too bad.
Well, fuck you then.
Yeah, that's why I say he's very much the Spectre, because that's that was the Spectre as well at one point, wasn't it? Good old DC.
Well, that's a question. Like, what you've delved into him more now. What's your take on the actual Hulk himself?
Way more interesting. Like, this is talky Hulk. Which is good, because I mean, you and I, you especially can't fucking stand movie Hulk.
No, he can go jump in a hole.
He says like 2-3 words, and it's like, well, he's not a character.
No,
he's just a hit the thing, and that's boring. That's why I would always say the 90s cartoon Hulk is superior to the movie Hulk, because at least he has something to say. even if he is the meek Hulk, we want Betty to pet me.
Betty.
But there's more to him there's more character to him. And I think, like, we haven't drifted into the realms of he's just Bruce Banner, which is also movie Hulk, which is what they did in the last one, Endgame, which I know you really hated.
Oh, so no, I'm still mad about that.
Yeah, so we haven't done that. So he's not like stupid over-the-top Professor Hulk, which is what that was. He is a very, very sinister Hulk, which again kind of edges him more to the horror aspect, which is nice. It shows that he is I mean, Bruce even says that he's smarter than Bruce, but he's not like raw intelligence. It's more like he runs on gut feelings and instinct. Which kind of pushes him, I suppose, like, kind of more like an animal. It gives you the idea he's more like an intelligent animal than he's a guy. The Hulk's not going to go to a house and, like, whip up a phaser or something like that. He's not your Commander Data or something like that.
Yeah.
But no, I do like him. I do find him to be interesting.
I think the art really plays well with him. Like,
yeah,
because they put a lot of emphasis on his face.
yes.
And he's got a very, like, he looks a little different from the regular Hulks, which I really like. Like, he's got more of an overhanging brow and stuff. Like, he looks more caveman-y.
I mean, you say that, but they drew She-Hulk to look very, very, very similar.
Yeah,
to
She-Hulk
Hulk.
looks a bit weird. Like, She-Hulk was redesigned at the time to look more like a girl version of Hulk.
Can we briefly talk about that? Because I just saw that and I was like, "What did they do to you, Jen? Why did Marvel wreck you?" I really didn't. I don't like the look of that She-Hulk. That's not She-Hulk.
Well, like, so first of all, she kind of turned into like a more bulked out grey version.
Okay,
but she still looked like Jen. She was just like big and buff, and she had real rage problems.
Right.
And then she just kind of turned into a very like, this is a monstrous version, but her current design I haven't read the new issue of Immortal Hulk, but her current design is basically a fairly attractive female head on a Hulk body.
Okay.
But she talks like the Hulk and she acts a bit more like the Hulk. And for me, I you know, if you want to do a storyline like that, fine, but she's not supposed to be the Hulk.
No, like, to me it sounds like, it seems that they tried to do with her, and this is from a very, very outside perspective because I've read neither book, they tried to do with her what they did with female Thor, and just make the Hulk but what if girl. And it's like, the thing that I found really distracting is you have the Hulk who's been written in a very interesting, smart way here, and then, it's just the Hulk. So it's like, he's an inferior version of Hulk. And I don't mean in terms of fighting power, I just mean in terms of character and writing. And then you look and you see it's Jen, and you're like, so it's ripped out everything interesting about Jen and turned her into the Hulk, which I think is quite insulting to the character that is the She-Hulk.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it because She-Hulk's, in my opinion, the best female Marvel superhero in terms of a character. Like, she's fantastic.
I would like, she's the one I would like, if you're going to say who's your favorite Marvel female superhero, I'd go with She-Hulk because she's attractive. She's got a great job. Like you can do a lot of stories, and I've read a lot of stories where she is the lawyer, and they're really fun. And she can also kick a lot of ass. She kind of covers the spectrum, and she's not just the Hulk.
Yeah, I always thought one of the strongest things about her was that she's this witty, perky, energetic person. Like, whereas Bruce is just worn down by this, she revels in it.
Yeah, because from what I remember, Jennifer was meant to be like really timid and meek and everything like that, and then the She-Hulk was in a way like the opposite of her, kind of like Stanley Ipkiss in The Mask. It kind of emphasized all the things that he wanted to be and all the things she wanted to be in She-Hulk, which is a nice idea, and that's why she was the happy Hulk. She was really pleased with being a Hulk.
And like, usually stories where she lost her powers were one where she was having like crisis of identity and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, they even mentioned it here, like the She-Hulk is who you wanted the world to see. Like, I do like how they do play to the psychology of it. Like, she's the only thing that basically has a chance of slowing him down, and because he is very smart, he basically just manipulates her by playing on the fact that you're very much just becoming me now, aren't you? And she denies it, and then he just like knocks her a few miles away. But like, I like the idea of that. It's just like, I just wish she wasn't being sacrificed to this idea.
Agreed. Yeah.
And I've seen books with her where she looks more normal, but they're still doing the Hulk speak, and that's something I'm really just hoping they dial that back eventually, because especially with I think when the TV series comes out, hopefully they'll dial it back instead of doing something very silly like
they can't do her as the Hulk, but just
girl
in a live action thing. There's no way.
No,
there's a way, but I really hope they don't.
Yeah, I really hope we don't just have her going like, "Oh, leave me alone," and just like, no.
I still don't know how I feel about them trying to do a live action She-Hulk show, mainly because it means that realistically, it being on a Netflix kind of TV budget, it's unlikely she'll be She-Hulk. she'll be transforming back and forth, and mainly Jennifer most of the time, or Jen, I would guess. And it's
that's why if you wanted to get a pretty actor, a pretty normal looking actor for Jen, that's fine. But you should have gotten someone massive and have her play Hulk for most of it.
Yeah, agreed.
And just put her in prosthetics, put her in makeup, whatever, and just have her being your main character. Like,
I think we both know that it's going to be CGI, though, right?
Oh yeah, and I'm not going, or it's going to be like really bad. I'm not looking forward to it.
No,
like,
no.
I'm not like, oh look, something MCU related is doing something with the Hulk, and I'm not excited. What a shock!
Yeah, it could be worse though, Mikey. It could be the Agents of Smash.
There is that, but she's better in that.
That's true. She is actually She-Hulk in that, and always She-Hulk. So
yeah. So yeah. But yeah, this leads into something which I'm curious to see your take on, because you're hearing all this Green Door stuff, and Thor is talking about something that we finally get the name the Devil Hulk, which is very significant.
But that was more of an offhanded comment that somebody made.
Yes, but it's significant to something from the past.
Oh, okay.
From an older Hulk book.
Okay. So that's for the super nerds out there.
It will be important later on.
Sure.
It will be referenced, but it is for something that if you had been reading Hulk for 3 years, that the term Devil Hulk should have set off a lot of alarm bells.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting.
But they're very much talking about the Hulk and stuff in a very different manner, and I'm curious to your take, and especially this whole Green Door thing.
What exactly about it?
Just are you interested in it? Are you interested in it, and do you have any thoughts or theories or anything like that?
Well, knowing very little about the Marvel universe, I can't remember. I know it's a thing in the DC. The Green is man, like in Marvel, Man Thing is a thing. Is he related to a version of the Green? And by the Green, I mean the Marvelant equivalent of the DC's version of the Green. What a terrible sentence! Yeah. I hope you get what I'm saying.
As far as I know, no. And
okay.
As far as I know, there is nothing directly equivalent to the Green, the Red, and the Grey.
Okay, fair enough.
As far as I know.
Only because I thought of that, and then the only other thing was I thought, okay, if it can't be that, the only other green thing that I know you should be afraid of, and I know it won't be that, is a Nihilus. And I was like, there's no way it's a Nihilus.
No.
It'd be fucking cool if it was, because I really like Annihilus. Mainly because Annihilation is a fucking fantastic comic series. But I was like, I can't see the Hulk fighting Annihilus. It wouldn't make sense, because this is much more toned back book, and unless you want the Hulk just squashing a lot of bugs, it wouldn't really work for the tone of the story. So it's an interesting idea, kind of the idea of talking about a doorway and it just having a color to it is very kind of Lovecraftian in a sense. And I like that aspect of it, especially when they talk about it, that there are things that can come through it and possess you. That is very Lovecraft in its most basic form, of course. So it's interesting. It's very convenient. I think it's green like the Hulk as well, of course it is.
But that's a very good choice of words, really, Lovecraftian. Yeah, it's interesting for me because I know what's going on, but sure. It's interesting. I will say some of the ideas of the Green Door as it goes forward, I'm still a little undecided about whether I love them or not. But
has it been explained what it is?
Yes, it is like absolutely laid out, like down to the detail what it is.
Right. Do you think that was a detriment, or do you think they should have made some of the, obviously not knowing what it is, and unless you've read it, not knowing what it is, do you think maybe some of the aspects should have been kept more and just not described, because you don't sound like you're fully happy with all of the ideas behind it?
It's one of those things where it fundamentally alters so many characters from this mythology.
Okay.
And also, like, it's a huge part of the overall Marvel mythology that will probably never be touched upon again. Like, it's what it means is something enormous. But it's just one of those things, like, it's just such a big change to the mythology of definitely the Hulk. I'm curious, like, the whole, like, everyone comes back from the dead thing as well. Like, I'm still not super sure, like, how I feel about that being, like, just universal to basically anyone who got mutated with Gamma.
Yeah.
Like, they play it fairly well in this book, obviously, but it's just someone else will write it one day.
Right.
You know, that's always my fear when you introduce interesting ideas, is that, okay, you're going to write it for however many issues, you're going to go away, and someone's going to come along and ruin it.
So it is like always a worry. It's something I guess you have to do though as a writer. You have to put down these threads for someone to do something with. But then you've got that fear of, oh wow, I wish you'd done something better with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just trying to, like, apart from that, I like the only thing of note really from me, apart from all those, is McGee, who apparently is based on a character from the 70s show.
Oh, really? Oh, it's
yeah.
an actual thing. Okay.
But she's following the Hulk, and then we get the revelation as to why. But I also find, like, her background is that at some point the Savage Hulk made his way through her town and kind of leveled the whole fucking place. And her dad was going like, "Don't look at him in the eye," and she did, and she's been obsessed with him ever since.
Searching for that D.
Yeah, it's for me. For me, the funny thing is her dad was going like, "Don't look at him in the eye," and it's just like, she's a child. She's fine. She could kick him in the shins. He wouldn't do anything.
Me.
It's like it's the Savage Hulk. He has a soft spot for kids. Like, he's not, like, it was that one thing of just like, don't look at him. You were perfectly safe. Your town wasn't, but you were perfectly safe.
Yeah.
And it's just like the one she confronts is the one who I believe you shouldn't look in the eye.
Yeah, probably.
But she wants what he has.
Yeah, that was an interesting line. I was like, does that mean that she wants to be a gamma mutant lady person as well?
Yeah, it's interesting how they play it. I saw some controversy actually about how they played it.
Oh, really? What was the controversy?
Some people thought it was a bit too modern and self-aware, without putting in a big spoiler. Okay. Because she basically lectures him at one point.
Oh.
About what he represents in her mind.
Right.
And some people took that the wrong way, and some people took it the right way, and I thought it'd be a bit divisive. I'm completely in the middle. I don't care about, like, I just find it interesting that she's seeing the most monstrous version of him, and she is just like, I want it. I want it.
It's an especially for a child to kind of think like that.
Yeah.
That's, okay.
I could be that tall. I'd never have to... Daddy wouldn't have to lift me up for anything.
That's half the fun.
I'd lift him and I'd throw him. He broke my doll.
Throw Dad to space to get my doll from the shelf.
We're going to play catch. Whee!
Not
Any minute now.
Me.
She'll come down any minute now. That's actually something, like, it's worth noting here. Apart from the Avengers fight, the whole strongest one there is thing isn't super relevant to this story.
No, the fight with the Avengers felt, I don't want to say forced, but it felt like, oh, we better have an action fight scene because we haven't had like a proper big Hulk fight.
We just want to emphasize that this guy could take out pretty much anyone he wants.
Yeah, oddly enough, it went exactly how I thought it would go because it's like it's obviously it's Hulk's book, but then I see the Hulkbuster. I'm like, well, I wonder what's going to happen to the Hulkbuster. Maybe this time the Hulkbuster will win.
You'd think at this stage Tony would redesign it.
Yeah, because it always looks the same, and I get why it always looks the same because it has to. Yeah. But fuck, you need to do something else, Tony, because your Hulkbuster's shit.
Yeah.
How is this not like Tony's biggest issue apart from alcoholism? Because that's like the Hulkbuster's his greatest and most consistent failure.
But are you saying the Hulkbuster is not a successful counter?
I'm saying it's a good delay tactic at best, and nothing else. How many times has the Hulkbuster won? Is there one time? I think you told me that there wasn't. I don't think. I think you've said it's never won. I've
looked it up a few times, and I've gone through, and basically there's a lot of different versions of the Hulkbuster. Mm-hmm. And no, there is no version of the Hulkbuster that has, apart from like the scene in Avengers 2, and even then. But there's no version of the Hulkbuster that has gone up against the Hulk and won. Oh, because it's always like, I've got this super armor. Oh, shit.
The only thing I could think of, like, robot-wise, that could maybe give Hulk a bit of a run would be, like, Nimrod. And he's from the future.
Yeah.
And even then, he'd probably get broken a lot, but he'd just kind of reattach himself together and go, time to Nimrod again. Doop, doop, doop.
Yep. Or just get beaten with a sentinel.
Yeah, probably.
I did like that where he took the Hulkbuster and whacked Black Panther so hard he nearly broke the vibranium.
Yeah. It was interesting to see that it was weird because, again, I don't really read Black Panther either, but the vibranium seems to work almost like Tony's nano suit from however many years ago, or the symbiote, because it kind of looked like it oozed around his head.
Yeah.
Is that what vibranium is now? It's like nanites or something.
I've only read a couple of Black Panther books over the years, so I'll say maybe.
Maybe, okay, fair enough.
Things are usually nanites because nanites are cool.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I'm told.
I want to also say that the Hulk is basically a JoJo reference from JoJo Season 2, because all of the bad guys are night-based, and to stop them, you turn them to stone by having UV lights on them. So this is a JoJo reference.
Thank you, Andy.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's okay. Knowledge. It helps.
Now you're that asshole on the internet.
I am that. Well, I've always been an asshole. I'm now just part of that group. They've welcomed me with their JoJo arms open. Gory yada yada does he?
Indeed. And the Waldo. See,
Zawaldo.
Every time I hear that quote, I just think it's Georgia.
Yeah, no, same. That's what I always thought as well.
But what clips I've seen of JoJo, it seems to be like, if he says that, he's going to be talking for a few minutes about the Waldo.
He will monologue because he's frozen people in time. And that's where bad guys love to monologue the most.
Yep. Why waste time when you have an infinite amount of it?
Exactly.
But yeah.
I will throw out one thing I found silly, at least visually silly, and maybe conceptually silly as well. The monitors. The monitors.
The upside down weirdos.
The upside down weirdos. The main thing I found weird about them was, why were they upside down?
That was strange. Especially since they play them
visual, but it doesn't make sense.
They're played in a weird comedic way.
Oh, so we'll see them more often, or do you just mean here?
No, here. Like, because it's been a while since I've read this part of the book, so I don't really remember them very well.
Fair enough.
But it's just this weird thing where they just feel like they're an extra from a Marvel movie, for want of a better term. Like, or The Mandalorian, where someone's talking in a really wacky way in an otherwise serious situation.
Yeah, because they're meant to be soldiers, aren't they?
Yeah, but they're like, oh, this is so weird, man. I feel like we're invading our privacy.
Yeah.
Like I will say,
like, reversible operation as well. The main guy's like, if you don't get back to work, we'll have the implants taken out of you, and you'll be mopping floors. And I thought to myself, I think I'd rather that.
Yeah, I'd rather mop the floors.
Yeah, I'd rather that than having wires for eyes and having loads of tubes plugged into me, and mainly being held upside down. Because if you need the toilet, there's got to be tubes going into you to get rid of that stuff, right? Unless they flush you prior.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's it was. I don't think I can get behind the monitors because they just look weird, and like weird for the sake of weird, and then you say, they've got this odd comedy element which doesn't really fit. I think you maybe could have replaced this with MODOK, and like a captured MODOK. Yeah,
that would be neat.
Yeah, I don't know if that would play into the story later on down the line. But I like, if you got MODOK and he was monitoring, he wouldn't give a shit about monitoring people because he's a stupid giant baby-headed person. So.
Or you could have used, like, if you want to keep it in tone, you could have used the leader or something like that.
Yeah, well, to be fair, I wouldn't be shocked if the leader was the guy on the little Segway, who I said was Chris McFeely. He gave off leader vibes, at least. To me, he gave off leader vibes when he was talking to Jarred Hulk, pickled Jarred Hulk. But we'll find out later, I suppose.
Yeah, never trust a man in a Segway.
No, it's not just he has a Segway. He has a Segway, and then in issue 7 he has the what are the Segways called? But they're just like the little board with two wheels, but they don't have the handles, because that's what terrible. He has. Yeah, they're like a health hazard.
Yeah, but it's like, never trust someone who not only has those but is using them indoors.
No, I know, right?
Everyone else is walking, but I'm doing this.
He's the one guy. That shows he's the tech guy.
Yeah.
I guess.
You can tell I'm the intelligent one because I'm using my energy to think.
It just made me think he was an asshole, and thus made me think he was the leader. Because I'm like, the leader's an asshole, so he would do something like that.
Clancy Brown. Oh my god. Sorry.
Oh,
completely.
Clancy Brown would do that too.
No. Yeah. Oh yeah. But when I was thinking about like voice of Lex Luthor Sasquatch, that just hit me all of a sudden. It was Clancy Brown.
Oh. Okay.
That was a weird. I don't know why that just popped into my head there, but
yeah, if it works, it works.
Yeah. I'm pretty good there. What about you?
Yeah, I would say so. I think we've covered these issues well enough. It's definitely worth the read. I don't think there was any lull, especially because it's like the first 7 issues. I think it builds up nicely. You have 2 individual stories to start off with, and then the story kind of starts mushing together.
Right, guys, we'll end it there. Thank you for taking the time to listen.
Are we going to give it a rating? Because I don't think we have to.
No, because the entire point of this, guys, is we're specifically picking books that at least one of us likes.
Yes,
and the goal is to see if we like them, and does the other person like them?
Oh, yeah. I was going to say it's like we're testing. Like, you like this book, right? I love it. Oh, thank God.
Don't make me make you disappear. But so it's not really a rating based system. It's just whether or not we like it.
And we do.
Yeah, and yeah, I would definitely recommend people read Immortal Hulk. Like I said in the main show, I'm behind on the main book, but at some point I will catch up. But as far as I know, it's still going strong, from what the few reviews I've read is. Mm-hmm. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening. As always, if you want to leave feedback, the email address is moonbase2@gmail.com. You can send something on Twitter, Facebook, everywhere else, and you can Twitter me at Irish Paleo if you want to give me anything directly. Remember, please no yaoi or porn. Professionals look at my account. I don't like to emphasize this, but I seem to have to emphasize this.
Yes, he just wants it on the Moonbase 2 Twitter feed.
I can't stop it. As I said, I cannot stop the furry being thrown at me, but I can at least direct it.
Yes.
Yeah, Andy, what about you?
You can find me on Twitter, CCTFW, YouTube as Cobra Commander TFW. You can find this podcast on the Moonbase 2 forums, on Twitter, iTunes, Facebook, Libsyn. YouTube is Moonbase 2 Transformers Podcast. You can find us as well on patreon.com/Moonbase2. Do $2 each month, I should say. You get the extended version of From the Files of Teletraan 2. You also get, which is this, and you get it a week early as well. And you also get the Moonbase Woo Woo, where we talk about non-transformery things. And I'm also on Twitch as CCTFW, and I do video games on there. And I go pew pew pew.
Yes, I have seen you go pew pew pew.
Oh my god.
He goes poo poo.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, guys, if you're on Patreon, stick around because we're talking about Secrets and Lies, Transformers 84, and if not, and you want to hear Transformers content even, give us money. We're now holding the Transformers hostage.
That's right. We're holding the good Transformers hostage.
Yeah. And we didn't mention it before, but we will at some point cover the issues of Transformers that come out after we're done with all this, but they will be done as a volume structure because I can't take it.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
So we're just going to let that build up for a while. Anyway, guys, talk to you soon.
Bye.
You are now leaving Moonbase 2.
Optimus Prime, and that's no bad thing, because Optimus Prime wouldn't do what we need to do. We need to do bad shit. Wrecking. We need to damage things in a way that is wrecked. It never. We must also end all sentences with "it never ends."